Welcome back on this Thursday. We have Derek Hodges from Anchor Point Wealth Management here to talk to us about money. I was just telling Brian, no one likes to think about money and finances this time of year because, well, let's just face it, we're all broke in December. Pretty much.
Absolutely.
The money is just going out. There's not a whole lot going
That's exactly
in.
right.
But we need to start thinking about next year. So yes, we need to start focusing on how we can maybe do better with our money so we're not as stressed out in December of 2024.
Yeah.
Right? So what are some ways we can start tackling that now?
Yeah, I think it's, you're hitting on a great point. Cash flow is really bad right now for most people.
Yes.
But then also, we've been hearing a lot of people asking questions about, okay, the war in the Ukraine, the war in the Middle East. What do all those things mean to my money? And I think that's one of the opportunities. This whole idea of a new year, a lot of folks set these New Year's resolutions. I'd like to take a different tack and say, let's set some really powerful goals, because I think a lot of these money decisions that we make, the conflict that we have with money, is usually because we're kind of commingling our money and our goals or lack of goals with all the news and all the headlines that we have. And so, for example, if I'm retiring 30 years from now, I would tell you the way my money's invested, I wouldn't be thinking at all about any of this strife in the world. I just wouldn't. I don't think
stress about that.
No.
Because you can't fix that.
No, and we've always had that in history. Now, on the other hand, if I said, hey, I'm gonna buy a car in June of 2024, well, that's a short-term goal. That money matters very near term. I would be very worried about that. And so I probably would say I shouldn't be in the investment markets. I should just be in cash. And so goals are very helpful in kind of sorting through all the questions that we have. And that way we can kind of react and respond appropriately rather than just emotionally, which is what oftentimes will happen.
Yeah, guilty of that. All right, so let's say, a lot of people like to try to go on a diet when they start the new year, but maybe our wallets need a diet too. What are some ways that we can be practically looking at our money, being smart? Maybe give us some top tips, maybe 3 of them we can think about, and I probably should have warned you about that, but I'm just thinking okay, what is one thing that we can start thinking about right now, practically speaking, that's not too huge that we can dive into?
Well, you talked about dieting. What's the first thing that somebody's going to tell us to do? Go get on the scale, find out where you are.
Yeah, get a base point.
That's right. Knowledge is power, and so knowing your spending, where is your money going right now? Oftentimes when we get into discussions about money and how we spend it, it can get pretty emotional, especially between couples. We can start pointing fingers. And I would rather just say, take away all that sensitivity and just say, first of all, we're being investigative reporters. Let's just find out where our money's been going. Then start to make some observation of this is where the goals come back in. If I have a powerful goal out in my future that really matters to me, I'm more likely to take control and make the choices that are better aligned with my present needs and my longer term goals. If we're not focused on a goal, we just wake up some days and go, where'd all my money go? And if we look back in history, we go, that may not have been the best use of that money. And I think if we constantly are evaluating where our money's going in relation to our goals, we'll make better choices.
So maybe looking at that, say, okay, you have 5 streaming services that it's coming out of your checking account every month. Maybe you have 2 gym memberships. There's money going out that maybe you're not using. So look at those things right now, and start thinking about, what can I cut?
And I think so. And I actually try to stay away from the word cut. I just try to think in terms of making better choices.
Okay.
And if we kind of evaluate this choice versus this one, which one matters the most? Most of the time, if we don't have a goal in mind, that short-term rush of buying something wins. That's what's so powerful. What I'm trying to say is let's get our choices in front of us and let's evaluate, slow the process down just enough to say, is this the best use of my money?
Okay, so a couple more thoughts in, and maybe you have a little bit of money you're trying to figure out, do I put it in a CD? Do I invest it in an IRA? Just trying to make smart choices. Say grandma gives you $500 for Christmas. What's your best way of maybe looking at that and growing that money?
Yeah, so I think that's where pull out your financial roadmap and look at your goals. And for example, if you don't have any emergency money, if you don't have some cash reserves set aside, I think everybody needs to have some amount of cash reserves. at minimum a couple $1,000s. For others, they might need to have more. So if you don't have cash reserves, I would say cash. If you're doing well on cash, maybe that money ought to go to one of your longer term goals. And then that's when maybe the investment markets could come into play.
And maybe spending that $500 to pay off a credit card instead of going on a shopping spree.
Absolutely.
As fun as that would be.
And that's where current interest rates really are a big deal. Home equity lines of credit are real expensive now. Credit cards are massively expensive. Anything we can do to reduce those would be powerful.
And that all helps reduce our stress, which
Yeah.
we all need to do.
That would be good.
As we go into 2024. Lots of goals, lots to think about. Derek, thanks so much, and Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas.
We'll take a break. We'll be right back.